Welcome to the Women in Weightlifting podcast. Join Mark House and Kristi Brewer as they learn the stories of USAW's elite female athletes. We are joined today on Women in Weightlifting by Taylor Turner Wilkins, fresh off her Pan American bronze medal and 3 American records. And Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So I think everybody's going to want to hear just kind of right off the bat. Tell us about Pan Ams.
Pan Ams was crazy. It was definitely a different experience. I mean, coming off of a year of no in-person competitions, much less an international competition. And honestly, I didn't really compete at all besides Texas State meet, which that was in person, but no big national meets. And so going there, I didn't really know what to expect. We got there. Honestly, my travel was a little off. I was texting Kristi. I was like, I may lift tomorrow. I may lift Wednesday. I may lift Tuesday. I'm not really sure. And she's like, okay. And so I ended up I figured out that I wasn't going to lift on Monday, but it might've been Wednesday. And then I found out I was lifting on Tuesday and I was like, okay, perfect.
Yeah. Cause weren't you thinking you might lift in the B session?
Yeah. On Monday, I thought I was going to lift in the B session. And then come to find out, or later on, there wasn't even a B session. They just combined it into one big session. But yeah, I thought I was going to be in the B session. And honestly, I looked at the start list and everybody else was just up there so high on the start list. And then here I was just one of the underdogs. And I was like, oh no, this meet's going to be something else. And so it comes to the day of the meet. I'm just hanging out in my room and they all have their coaches meetings the night before, and Vance comes out and he just has my warm-ups written down. And he said, hey, this is what we're going to have to do, 215. That's kind of what our goal is going to be, is 215, but you're going to have to try, you're going to have a big day, make any changes to your warm-ups that you want. So I looked at my warm-ups and I was like, oh, that's good. Whatever. I'm more of a person that just goes with the flow anyway. So I'll change my warm-ups, but if we need to change my starting weight, or if time's going just a little fast, I'll be like, well, I can skip this one and just jump 10 kilos. It's fine. So I kind of just let it just flow. And so we got there. After I weigh in, I eat all the food, and then it's time to lift. And I'm just sitting there. And they get my counts and they're like, hey, I think it was 18, you're 18 out. So we're going to have to start warming up pretty soon, in the 10-minute clock, basically. And at national meets, I usually don't have to do that. And so I was like, okay. So I get back there and I'm lifting. My first attempt went well. It was a little shaky though. So after I stood up, I was like, okay, first attempt over. I'm fine. I've hit a snatch.
And you opened at what, 87?
89. And that's actually the most I've ever opened. Vance did have 90-91 written down, and I was like, can we open 89? Just because I wanted to make sure I hit it. And he's like, sure, that's fine. Just make bigger jumps. And so I went 89, and then I went to 93, I think. I think that's what I did. Yeah, 93. So 93 was a comp PR for 59. So I lifted at Texas State. I did 94, but I was a 64.
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were. So I hit 93, and it was easy. And then I knew I was going 95. That was the game plan for snatch. So snatch was pretty stuck to the game plan. Went 95 and it looked easy. And they're like the what ifs. They were like, what if we put 96 on the bar? And just looking back, we made the absolute right call. But but it's definitely could you have done it?
That third attempt, I mean, that 95 kilo snatch was just beautiful. I mean, I actually was texting with Kristi at that point, and I was like, she just nailed that. It was beautiful. And I was like, and I'm sitting there thinking the same thing. I'm like, why not 96? I'm like, oh yeah, well, let's just go ahead enough so that we miss, and then we don't have to worry about these things, right?
Yeah. And it caught me off guard. And I honestly, before, I didn't even know the American records. It's not something that I don't know. I just have never really looked at them. So Vance was like, okay, our first goal is 215. Second goal is going to be the American records, which is 95 and 118. And then you just need to make lifts basically. And I was like, okay. Because like I said, we really didn't know where I would stand on medal potential. There's people like on the start list at 222. And so then,
wow.
Yeah, there was like 2 people in at 222 and then 1 person in at 217 and a 215. So really my highest total before this was 207. Right. So what are you going to think going into it? You're like, well, we'll see. It's been a year and I haven't really done any meets. Yeah. So then we go into clean and jerk, and
you got to be feeling pretty good coming off. I mean, you broke the American record. It's, I mean, you had to be feeling good.
Yeah. So when I hit 95, and you can even, like, if you watch the videos, I don't really get excited after my snatches. I'm not like, oh my goodness, like, what did I just do? I just like put it down. And then it wasn't until I saw Vance like put his arms up, I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to celebrate. So I just put my arms up. I was like, I forgot to celebrate. But it was big. I was like, okay, I just hit 3 snatches. Like, that's awesome. My main thing is I'm never on 6 for 6. So I like going into this meet, I was like, I just want to go 6 for 6. I just want to hit my lifts. And then I know that I left everything out there on the platform. Like, I did all I could because I hit all my lifts. It doesn't matter if I medal, that doesn't matter to me. If I hit 6 for 6, I know I did what I needed to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so that's the first time you've gone 6 for 6?
Yes.
Oh my God, what a place to do it.
I know. And that's what, like,
yeah. Well, and with those numbers, because you can go 6 for 6 and hit easy numbers. Like, I've done 6 for 6, but it was like 90%. Like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah.
I know. Not 110% of your lifts.
And I haven't even done I've gone 6 for 6 in local meets doing light numbers, but like hitting PRs and just everything working out how it's supposed to, never have. And I've gone 5 for 6, I've done that, but I always look at myself as, what can I do to get better? If I went 5 for 6, that means I missed a lift. I left weight out there on the platform. So when I went into clean and jerks, 110 in the back, well, we were planning on opening 112. And I was like, hey, Vance, because I wanted to know when to put my knee wraps on. I was like, am I going to do one more? How many more warm-ups do I have before opening at 112? And he kind of just looked at me and he's like, well, we're going to open 114. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, do you want me to bump it back down to 112? I was like, no, like, you know what you're doing. Just put 114 on the bar. Like, it's fine. But 110, something went wrong with my jerk, and I didn't drive all the way. And I was just like, uh-oh. And Mike even told me after the meet, he's like, I looked at Piros and was like, oh man. So like, it definitely scared everybody, but Vance knows me and he was like, that usually happens. Like, you at least have one bad warm up. It just so happened to be the last warm up before I was supposed to go out.
I've done that. I actually had my best meet when I had my worst last warm up.
Yeah. And that's what happened here. And so I hit it, and then we go out for 114 and hit it. And my jerks have been off recently. And so like 114, I was like, okay.
So,
and I knew, go ahead.
You picked up one red light on that. I have no idea why. I've watched that lift a dozen times and I don't know why you got red light. Do you know?
I didn't even know until I was rewatching the video that I got a red light. I didn't feel anything. I didn't see anything. It could have very well been my face, because my jerk was like, I had to stabilize, and I'm pretty bad at making facials. So I was just like, and I put it down, and it was more of a face of like, seriously, like, what the heck? Like, I just hit 110 so terribly, and that was a little bit easier, but I had to stabilize type of thing. So I don't really know like why I got a red light. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like I pressed out. And everybody even said that after. They're like, why'd you get a red light? I was like, I don't know. I didn't even know. And then going into the second attempt, I knew I was going 118 just because that was kind of like the second goal was to hit 118. But Vance came back and told me before, the plan was go 118 to 120. And when he told me before he even told me I was opening 114, he's like, hey, we're going to put what we need to on the bar to medal because your snatches went really well. Like you are in a place where you could possibly medal. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I honestly, it went 118 and I was like, okay, I know it's going to be more than 120, but I was just hoping it was going to be 121 because I was like, I've cleaned 120 multiple times. I've missed the jerk every single time. And I kind of like already got in my head where I was like, you know how 120 is going to feel, like just jerk it. You know, it's going to whip, you know, like you've been there 3 times. There's no reason you should miss this time. And so I was like, okay, well, 121's not that far off from 120. So, but then 121 passed on the scoreboard and I was like.
And the Columbia lifters missed 120. So
yes.
You had a couple, all of a sudden you've got people missing lifts and it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're saying, I'm in medal contention.
Yeah. And so I was like, I saw 121 pass and I don't really, when people miss, that doesn't mess me up because I'm not like, oh my gosh, they're missing. I more just look at, well, people are about to they're about to open at 121. There's no reason I can't hit 121. That's kind of how I look at it. But then when 122 came on, I was like, oh man, this must mean I'm taking 122. I honestly walked up there. I had no idea what was going to happen. I felt there wasn't a point in my mind when I was like, I'm not going to make this list. Like, this is a crazy lift. I was just more of like, well, we'll see. Like, it's on the bar. This is what you need. This is going to put you in a good spot. And this makes 6 for 6. And so when I went up there, when I pulled it and I got under it, I actually kind of dropped, like I got soft in my core. Mm-hmm. And I was like, there for a split second, I was like, oh, I'm going to miss. But I was like, no, just get tight. And I just like, this was the first lift that I've ever been able to like think through the whole entire thing. But besides getting up there and lifting it off the floor, like doing my pull, from the moment I caught it to standing up to jerking it, I was actually like thinking in my head, and I never do that. And when I got it set and I just stood up, I was like, okay, I just made it. And I usually get really excited when I make those big cleans, but I was like, okay, you need to catch your breath and just jerk it. And so I caught my breath. I got like my vision back because it took everything out of me just to stand it up. And then when I jerked it and I caught it, I was like, oh my gosh, I just caught this. But then my next thought was, okay, you've caught lifts before and your recovery is so bad that you've dropped them. So I was like, keep pushing into the bar. Like, this is my whole entire thought process. I was like, I just need to keep pushing into it. And then when I made it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just did that. And I put it down. And when you see me grab my head, it's because I started tearing up, and I don't cry. Like, I'm not a crier at these things. And I like started tearing up, and I was like, my thought was, I don't cry. How do I react to this? So I just like put my hands on my head. I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And then I was just more happy that I went 6 for 6 versus I didn't even think about it being a record. I didn't even think about 118 being a record. It was more of just, I just had a really good meet. And it came out at the perfect time. Pan Am's off after a year off. Yeah. I've been training in my garage. So it just showed that like, it's been worth it, especially this last year. I mean, I started my job and stuff, so I didn't know what to expect. And honestly, after last year and it got postponed, I was like, oh man, this is going to be a long year. And then honestly, probably even like a month or two before that, we didn't even know if it was for sure going to happen this year.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, certainly not live. Well, I mean, I that 122, and I know there were some big lifts posted by the women in USA weightlifting, but that 122 was by far my favorite lift of the week. Because I mean,
well, and a 10 kilo total. I told her I was like 10 kilos. People don't put 10 kilos on a total. Like
not at the lift you guys lift. I mean, to put total in a day? Are you kidding?
Yeah,
yeah.
And that was the thing too. I like looked at it and I was like, I was PR'd by 10 kilos.
Yeah.
And my second attempts on both lifts were PRs in a comp at 59.
Yeah.
My second attempt in clean and jerk was an all-time PR.
Have you ever even had 122 on the bar?
No.
Because I mean, I've watched you do 120, try 120 because you tried it at the Texas State meet. I didn't get to watch that. I saw it later. And then I've seen you at 118, but I was asking Bobby about this. I was like, has she ever even had 122 even in practice? He was like, no.
Never. I never have. So that was a big thing too.
So
I've never touched it.
Go ahead, Kristi.
I'm curious. Do you feel like the adrenaline from a competition makes the weight on the bar feel lighter? Like, do you get an adrenaline rush? Or do you mainly, like, how do you feel? And how does the weight feel during competition?
It feels significantly lighter.
Yeah.
I am very much a performer. I like thrive off of the competition setting.
Mm-hmm.
In my garage, training's terrible. Props to you. You've done that your whole entire lifting career. I don't know how you did that. When I go to a gym though, it feels lighter. Competition, I would say the competition feels the same as me going to a gym, honestly, just because I train in my garage a lot, so that when I go to the gym, it's like that atmosphere. But yes, it does feel significantly lighter than me being in my garage. I would say there has to be some sort of like, it feels a little bit lighter than even going to a gym, just because it's for something. You're like, hey, I'm here to prove my point or prove my spot or like get a medal, just anything.
No, that's how I feel. I feel there's, especially going from like a garage, and I love going to a gym.
Yeah, Kristi, did you get out to train much outside of the house very often?
Majority of the time I don't. Before COVID, I realized I was really starting to drag. Just the monotonous of being alone all the time. I also had never had virtual sessions at the time, so I was literally 100% by myself all the time. And so before COVID, I was trying to make arrangements to go to other gyms because I was just like dying. Like literally, I was just withering away. And then COVID hit, and it was just like, hey, like there's no choice. And so I've essentially become habitual in training alone. And again, I've just started I'm starting to like feel like it's a lot. I don't think people realize how sucky it is to train by yourself all the time. Like there's literally nobody. And so I finally reached out to someone and I said, I need to get out. Like, it's just becoming like a grind. And it's like, you can only grind so long until it sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and right now it's kind of.
And Taylor, you said you've been training just in your garage for the last year?
Yeah. There was times that on the weekend we'd go down to CrossFit Big D and I'd train with Bobby and them. I had to throw out the name there because when I did my interview with Kelsey with USA Weightlifting, I just said a gym and they all called me out for saying a gym. So CrossFit Big D down in Dallas. So I'd go there and train on the weekends sometimes. But it's still like a 45-minute drive. So if we had other things to do on the weekends, or it turns out to be like a 4-hour trip every time we go there.
Yeah.
So we would train in our garage. So it'd be like once or twice a month we'd make it down there. Other than that, I was usually at my house. I would say about 2 weeks prior, when I had my heavy weights and stuff, I would go to Big D because I knew I needed that. If I tried to hit it, my snatches were way off. I could barely even hit 90 in my garage. And I think like something was like, I was just tight anyway. So like it was something mechanically wrong as well as training in my garage. I just couldn't hit it. So I started going to the gym down there. But other than that, I'm in my garage.
Where's your coach? Does he come to your house? Or are you virtual? What's that situation?
So my coach actually, my last year of college, or maybe my last 2 years of college, he went to a different school. So we were doing remote training anyways. Now there was always a coach up at NMU. So I'd have like a team and I'd have other eyes on me. But I think it definitely did help because I started with him in person. So I was able to like learn my body and learn what I was doing wrong. But he's in Georgia. He's always been in Georgia
Okay.
since we lived here. So it's me. I send him videos. And Kenny, honestly, he works so much that he wouldn't even be here. And then there were some days that I was like, I would have to cook dinner. And I would honestly cook dinner in the middle of my training because I would not like have time. And I'd finish my heavy stuff. And then between squats and my clean and jerks, I would go start up the grill. And like, that's how I was doing it. And I was like, Kenny, I need you to come home because I need your help. I'm trying to train for Pan Ams. That's honestly another reason I was worried too, because I was like, hey, I'm trying to train for this and I need your help. But he's in construction, so he works a lot that I just had to make do.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got married, what, a year ago now?
Yeah. Or no, only 5 months. We got married in December of 2020.
I just knew that it was like last year sometime. I did look how the last one was. So, well, congratulations on the marriage.
Thank you.
And you married, yeah. Now, does Kenny lift? I mean, I don't think he lifts at the level you do, but he lifts at a pretty high level too, doesn't he?
Yeah. So he was, well, I wouldn't say pretty high anymore, but he was doing like nationals and stuff, but he was also in like CJ's weight class.
Oh.
So he was okay. And now he more trains for fun. Because his job is so taxing.
Right.
He just trains. I think might make an appearance at nationals. I'm not sure, but
that'd be cool.
He definitely does still lift.
So how did you get into weightlifting? I mean, I think I've known you most of your career, but how did you get into weightlifting?
So I actually did Florida high school weightlifting, because that's where I'm originally from, is Florida. And I started my freshman year, but Florida high school weightlifting does bench and clean and jerk. So I was just benching and doing clean and jerk. And then my junior year, I went to States, and that's when Vance came down and he actually recruited me. And I knew I wouldn't do a sport in college. And so I decided to go up to Northern, not even knowing I didn't even know what Olympic style weightlifting was. I had no idea. Until I got that letter and I was like, oh, they do a snatch, whatever a snatch is. So then my freshman year of college, I went up to Northern and I started doing Olympic style there.
And so, yeah, so you actually started competing in as a junior, right? I mean, you were out of the youth category before you actually even started competing.
Yes. So I was, let me turn this off. Okay. I was 18 when I went up to school, so I was no longer a youth. I think my first meet was supposed to be American Open, and I think it couldn't have been the end of 2015. Well, maybe American Open the end of 2015, but I ended up getting hurt. And so my first meet was Junior Nationals 2016.
Okay.
And I think I placed second.
Yeah, I mean, I remember either that meet or one of the other meets where I was like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
And it was, because you came out and kind of shocked everybody with the numbers you were putting up. It was pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I think I won snatch and then I placed second overall. So it's definitely, people were like, who is this? I mean, the person that won first was Aaron Amos.
Right.
And so, but then from there on out, I just kept increasing my total.
Well, yeah, a little bit, right? So, and I know you have a day job of some kind, but what do you do professionally?
So I am a security specialist at Texas Instruments. So just do corporate security.
Like on the tech side or on like the physical plant side? What do you do?
We don't do the physical like security that you'd see at the gates and stuff, but it's more of just making sure the policies and procedures are followed and making sure that business can keep operating how it needs to. Those kinds of things, like with COVID, that's a big thing, making sure that everybody's following these policies and that was kind of a difficult transition too, is that I started this career in the middle of COVID. So I'm having to learn this side of things, but also navigate COVID and making sure people are following these policies and procedures that were put into place with COVID.
So have you been like full-time remote the entire time?
No, so I actually am on site half and half. So it's half and half. So I'm on site 2 to 3 days a week. They alternate. We alternate Wednesdays, and then I work from home the other half.
Well, it's not bad, but I mean, working a full-time job and training at the level that you train must be somewhat taxing.
Yeah. And luckily the job, I mean, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of projects. But it's not like I'm going and tackling people and stuff. So so at least that side of things, it's honestly the best job that I could have is for like training. I work 7 to 3, and obviously if I need to stay late, I need to stay late. But for the most part, it's 7 to 3. I'm able to train. They are very supportive of what I do. I mean, they all knew what I was going to do last week. And when I got back, one of my coworkers had already sent an email about how I did before I even sent an email. Like, he went and looked it up. So they're all very supportive. And our regional manager is actually like, you're going to the Olympics, like you're going to be there. So he's like, they're all for it.
So speaking of the Olympics, what's your plan the next 3 years? I mean, are you going to stay at 59? Are you going to go to 64? Are you going to wait till the Olympic categories come out? What's your plan?
That's a good question. If you would have asked me last year after Pan Am's, because I felt like I kind of hit a sticking point for a little bit, like my total, it was at 207. Like that's where it was. It just stayed there. And I was like, okay, I'm going up after this meet. Like I need to gain weight. I need to go up. I need to get stronger. And so then it got pushed to this year. And I was like, that means I have to cut weight for a whole nother year. I actually sat heavier than I've ever sat. My body felt great. And that's why I was like, okay, I'm moving up to 64. But the weight cut also wasn't too terrible. And I increased my total by 10 kilos. So I think the thing for right now is to stay at 59. I actually haven't really talked to Vance about it because I've kind of just been trying to process it. But with my total still increasing, my body didn't feel like crap. I definitely think that 59 would be a good option. Now the Olympic categories could come out and it'd be like 63 or 64, whatever the weight class is. And I'd be like, okay, well, that's where I'm going. I do plan to train through the next quad, or 3 years. I do plan to train through that. And that's kind of like my next goal, is to just really get serious about it and start tackling this next try.
Now, you and I had kicked around you applying to law school. Are you still looking at doing that?
I don't know. It's definitely something I'm into. I want to go back to school. Now, if it's something for more like just a more specialized that could help me move up in the company that I'm in, like I'm looking at that. I'm also still considering law school because I'm just really into law school. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I
was wondering because law school would be very conducive to you work, like training as a full-time athlete.
Yeah.
How many days a week do you train?
I only train 4 to 5 days a week. Recently, so when I first started working, it was 4 days a week just because my body was just beat. I told Vance, I was like, hey, I think I need to go down to 4 days. we were doing 4 days. And then once we got closer to Pan Am's, I said, hey, let's kick it up to 5. Like, I want to do well. I want to get stronger. So it's been 5 days a week, but it's only one session a day.
So, I mean, what does a session look like for you? How much volume are you doing?
I wouldn't say it's too much volume. Like Vance and I mean, obviously different things work for different people. And we found like what works for me is just pretty much the single lifts. I haven't had too many complexes that I can recall. So it's usually like a snatch movement. It really depends. Like my Mondays are usually snatches. My Wednesdays are usually clean and jerks. My Tuesdays are like muscle movements, technique, some heavy squats.
Okay.
So it depends. I would say if there's any volume, it's going to be on my squats, and Vance is going to try to kill me.
So heavy sets of 5s and things like that.
Yeah, or 10s or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. Either heavy sets of 10s, but my legs got really strong, especially last year. That's when I think that's like where my weight like sat when I started gaining. I was like, man, I'm gaining a lot of weight, but my squats were going up. And I think I did like 130 or 135 for 10. And
oh my God, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Wow. So what's your PR back squat? Any idea?
I think it's only like 155. I mean, it might be more. I haven't really PR'd my backs. I haven't PR'd my back squat recently, but I PR'd my front squat and it was like 140 and it wasn't that hard. So it's probably more than 155 now, but I'm trying to get Shayla squats. I'm trying to get her squats.
Yeah, we're hoping to get Shayla on the podcast at some point before nationals, but we haven't actually talked to her yet.
Yeah.
Does she? I take it she squats just a freight train.
She like front squatted like 149 one time, and I was like, "That's my back squat."
Well, Kristi does. What were you telling me? Front squat triples at 133, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Kristi front squats a ton too.
Yeah, I think I think I tripled like 130 or something on my front squat, but my best was like 135 at the time. I just like had the sticking point where like I couldn't get past it. So.
Well, if you come up with a 122 clean, it really doesn't matter what you front squat.
Yeah.
Well, and that just goes to show it's so much more of a technical sport than a strength sport, because like me, my back squat or my squat numbers are super high compared to my lift numbers. Like I got some technique to figure out.
We were kind of exchanging text messages about this. After you get done lifting, so after you finish Pan Am's, what is your favorite like indulgence? What do you like to go eat or do or whatever?
Anything. I like all sweets. I have the biggest sweet tooth ever. So that's like when cutting, I like had to cut out all my sweets and it was terrible. I would say that like I really like cheesecake and ice cream, but you can even ask like anybody that was at Pan Am's. We went to the buffet because we're at a all-inclusive, so it's all you can eat. And I know. And I'm like looking at the dessert and I'm like, no. And Harrison's coming with ice cream and I'm like, that looks so good. And I was like, I'm gonna get that and I'm gonna get that. And I'm gonna like, I was just like pointing out things I was gonna get after I lifted. So I would say anything sweet. It's never really like I'm going straight to this. If we're in the States and my family comes to a meet, I usually ask to go to the Cheesecake Factory after, but that's really just for cheesecake. I really like cheesecake.
I'm curious about, and I know because we've talked a little bit, but your nutrition pre-competition, like how's that in general?
So actually, people are always like, what do you eat? They're always like, what do you eat? You must be really strict on your diet. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. But I would say that like, since starting work, I haven't been like, I don't eat horribly, but I also am not going to turn down chocolate cake and anything sweet. Like I never really tracked anything. I never counted my macros. However, that meeting that I was on prior to this, I was discussing getting more serious about counting my macros and stuff. So hopefully that'll be in the works. So my body gets the fuel it needs. But yeah, before this, it was, it's just kind of what I felt like eating.
Yeah. I wonder if you were just like, not like, if you were like low on macros.
And that's what I think, just looking at what I was eating before, because we'd make breakfast and it's really, I eat like 2 eggs. I eat the egg whites. I don't even eat the yolk, and some fruit. And so that would be my breakfast. And then lunch, it would be leftovers from the night before, which is just usually like, it'd be a rice, a veggie, and a protein. And then I would eat like a granola bar or some yogurt or both. But when I got home from work, and then dinner, it was like the same thing. So, or the same thing that I had for lunch. So it was like, I probably was under eating.
Yeah, it sounds like that's not very much food at all, especially if you're training.
Yeah, and USAW brings along like a very helpful team. And Megan, that's who I just got off the phone with, and we were discussing my macros, and she like gave me some numbers, and I was like,
yeah, I bet it's probably like double what you're eating.
Yeah, I don't even know what I was eating, but these numbers sound so high. But she knows what she's doing. She's smart. I have no idea. I'm like, okay.
So one of the questions that I love to ask is, how do you get in the headspace to perform at the level you perform? So we talked a little bit about this, in terms of Pan Ams, but I mean, what is your self-talk? What are you thinking as, I call your name, right? For you to come out on the platform, and you have, 1 minute before you take the big lift. What is in your head?
So a lot of people ask, like, how am I in the back? And I don't listen to music or anything, because that messes me up, because that'll make me get in my head. Really, I try to stay out of my head is what I try to do. So when I'm back there, a lot of people don't like to hear when people are missing, or the buzzer, like that throws them off, right? Well, that to me, it keeps me in the game, because I'm like, okay, well, this is what's happening. If people miss, I don't think of it as, man, I have a 2-minute clock. Like, I'm like, okay. And then once I hear my name, actually, I don't even really hear my name. Vance will just be like, hey, it's your turn. And usually I'll be just talking to somebody, or I'll just be like goofing around in the back. If it's a national meet, I'll usually have Kenny come to the back, and he's kind of he'll keep me grounded. So I'll just be like talking to him about, we could be talking about our dog. Like it wouldn't even be anything about lifting. I'd just be like, oh, well, what are we going to do with Augie? And Vance will be like, hey, it's time to go. And I'll be like, okay. And I'll walk out. And it's not until like I step up on the stage where I'm like, I take my breath, I say, and I'll like, if you ever watch me, I'll be like mouthing stuff to myself, but I'm usually saying, don't think, just do. You know what you're doing, or do what you came here to do. And those are my thoughts. Once I get up to the bar, I usually try not to think. And that's usually when you see me like pump my legs up and then go down, and I just immediately go. It's because I'm like, okay, I'll be like, okay, now, and I'll just go. And so that's really my mindset. I don't think, oh, you need to extend all the way. I don't start thinking about all these cues, because that'll mess me up. So I'm like, don't think, just do. You can. Right. Those are the things I'll say to myself.
So you don't like having music?
No, at least not in my ears. Like, I don't mind like background music or things, but like how people put the headphones in.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It makes me get in my head. I just can't. Like, I'm like, no. I tried it one time, but I like to hear what's going on. I like to hear the buzzer going down. Because I typically know where I'm at in the lineup. I typically know where I'm at. So like, I just like to hear the buzzers going, and if I have the music in, I feel like that takes me out of it more than just talking to somebody standing right there, like cracking jokes takes me out of it.
That is fascinating. We've heard, I mean, a lot of different versions about what in the back looks like. But you're the first person who said, yeah, you know, the whole like lifting thing is just kind of on the side. I'm just sitting there, you know, talking to Kate about the dog.
Yeah. And that's like, it's always been my mentality. I don't get very emotional. And that's one thing that like, even my whole entire family has pointed out, like, you're not emotional. You're not, if I miss, I don't go back in the back and cry. I'm like, oh, well, cause I'm like, that's going to waste my energy. I need to go hit my next lift, you know? And they're always like, how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I need other things that take my mind off of it. And this is, I feel like if you get too caught up in it, and you start missing these lifts and you start getting frustrated, it takes the fun out of it.
So if we were to have a song that you would like to, you know, come out to, is there something that you like?
Like a walkout song?
Yeah, like a walkout song.
I don't know. I always like for my walkout song, I always go to TNT because that was my initials prior to getting married. So I kind of just go with that. But if you're in my garage and there's music playing, it's like usually like Christian music or country music or like 90s. It's like everything.
Oh, it can't be country music. I just can't.
I love country.
I can listen to anything. I don't need, and that's like comes with, I don't need it to hype me up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I can just listen to anything.
Yeah, maybe we'll find TNT, but or you know, if there's a good Christian rock song you like, we can pull that out. But
No country.
No country will on the speaker. A couple other questions, and then I promise we won't keep you forever. But what is the hardest thing about weightlifting or being a weightlifter?
So I try to think about this one, and I don't know if I would say anything like too deep, because like I said, like my mentality is more just like, this is supposed to be fun. But I would say the hardest thing about weightlifting is you're always going to have a day when you're like, I don't want to lift. Like, why am I doing this? And to just get out of that mindset to keep going, or when you hit a plateau and you're like, I've been hitting these same numbers. I mean, I watched videos from 2018. I was hitting 90 in 2018. Like, why am I not hitting 100 now? And I think just trusting it, like being able to keep going is a big thing, because that, I would say that's the hardest part, is just keeping yourself motivated, especially when you don't have a gym or you don't have that team to go to. I would say that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that from a number of people, that, you know, the when you reach a certain point and gains are just measured in kilos over years, it's to keep yourself motivated to keep trying, especially when you haven't hit the number you need to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be hard. Then you have a breakout day like you did at Pan Am's, where the world just changes overnight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you had mentioned, Kristi asked you before we started recording, kind of, are you still on this high from Pan Am's? And your answer is kind of interesting. So I'll ask the question again. Are you still on this high from Pan Am's?
So it's starting to die down. But like I said earlier, like I've never had a meet where I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I lived on that, like, and I would talk about it constantly. Like when I got home, Kenny and we've had multiple conversations about it. My parents are still bringing it up. I'm talking to my grandparents and they're bringing it up, and I'm just like still so excited about it. And I would say, like, I was up on cloud 9 for a while, because I hit 6 lifts. That was my big thing, was the 6 lifts. I was like, I did that. And I left everything I had. Now, yes, there's stuff to improve on my technique. Numbers can always get better, but I was like it worked out how it was supposed to. And that just like I was like, oh my goodness. And like you said, it changed overnight. Like I had that breakout day and now everybody's like, whoa. It puts a lot of pressure on you too, being out there in the spotlight. Like I was talking to Jessica Lucero and I was like, it's like, we had a really good conversation and she was just like, pretty much like we talked about, don't let the fear of being up there, like people are going to be after you now. You're up there and people are going to be after you. But I'm also a person that if you're going to go break my record, or if you're going to go break a record, or you're going to beat me to it, you're going to beat me, I'm going to cheer you on as you're going out there. I'm not like a mean person. I'm like there to cheer you on. We're both having fun. And I feel like when people are just not nice about it, or they won't talk to others, like it can take the fun out of it, because you're like, man, I'm really just fighting against this person versus we're pushing each other to get better.
Well, you had mentioned that even at Pan Am's that you and Kristi were texting back and forth. And I mean, you guys are two of the top 5, athletes in the 59 kilo weight category. And for the two of you to be, actively supporting each other, it's just a fantastic thing to see. And I mean, and maybe it is unique to this particular weight category, but I mean, we see a lot of that where, the athletes are super supportive of each other and everybody, yes, you have a target on your back right now because you are the leader, but it's like, wow, did you see that? And then like, wow, there's going to be everybody, the chase is on, right? I mean, it's no longer a chase to break the record. Now it's a chase to catch Taylor.
Well, and this is how I see it, as she can do it, I can do it too. So for me, it's motivation. And like the better someone else does, it's like, why not me?
Yes.
And to be honest, like I don't want to beat someone on their worst day. I want to beat someone on their best day. So I want everyone to show up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like in reality, like we all want it. I want everyone to do good. It doesn't mean that I don't want to do better, but I also want everyone to do good, because then that means like I'm doing really good.
I completely get
everybody
that.
come out and hit a 6 for 6 day where it's actually a real, just genuine competition.
Yeah.
God, what a day
that would be just, I think it would just be epic.
Yeah. And I'm like, the 59 weight class right now, like, I love it. I mean, Shayla, I talked to Shayla.
I love Shayla. I can't. Yeah.
Like, we're pushing each other on. And even before Pan Am, she's like, you're going to do so good. Like, I'm like, and then after she was like, oh my, like you killed it. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, if I had your squats, like, holy crap, like, and we just cheer each other on. And like Kristi, I think from the first time she lifted as a 59, we talked to each other. My aunt was sitting next to her family in the crowd, and I come out and my aunt's like, hey, look, me, Kristi. And I was like, oh, hi. And like, so
that's so funny.
So like, I feel like the 59s are like an awesome group right now. And I guess I haven't really talked to a lot of them. I swear people are just coming out of nowhere. Like that, and that's how it happens. You think you're in the clear, and then people just come out of nowhere and they're freaking strong as crap. And you're like, oh no. But then you just use it as like, well, she can do that, so why can't I do that? And it's just a fun sport.
This particular group I really, really enjoy. But you're right. I mean, Kelly Wild kind of came out of nowhere. And because I was talking to Jessica Lucero last fall about who was going to break the American record. I chose you. And Kelly's name wasn't even on the radar screen yet.
Yeah.
Jessica's bet was on Shayla, the clean and jerk record, by the way.
Yeah.
And Jessica's bet was on Shayla. My bet was on you.
My bet would have been on Shayla too.
Yeah, because she's been hitting like high numbers. She's got a really good squat.
It was like solid 50-50 of who's going to have it, who's going to have what day when. You put up the magical number, a really magical number actually. That's going to be hard to catch. And by the way, you kind of screwed up my entire plan for nationals of somebody to break the record at nationals because while we're announcing, but that's okay.
Well,
maybe somebody comes in.
Yeah,
maybe Kristi comes out and hits 123.
I mean, I would love to see like the 4 or 5 of you all pushing 120, because
That would be so amazing.
find that there's only 6 people in the 59s that have cleared 200.
Total.
Yeah, 200 kilo total. And then there's only you and Kelly Wild are the only 2 that have put up a double body weight clean and jerk. So once, and Kristi's certainly capable of it. So is Shayla. So, I mean, there's a group of you that should be all pushing that 120 market. Oh my God, that would be an epic day.
Yeah.
So Kristi, I'll let you close because I know you're going to have to log off here in a minute. So I'll let you.
Yeah. This is my life. So anyway, the closing question is, what is like a piece of advice or something that you wish had known when you were like a beginner lifter?
I don't know. I would say like I was fed into a really great coach. So I guess if you don't have a coach, get one. But when I was like looking at these questions and I was thinking about that one, my high school weightlifting coach, like from the beginning, was like, trust the process. And that may mean starting off light. And I would go back and tell myself that the process works. So really trust it. Like don't start straying or don't start switching coach. I mean, sometimes you may need to switch a coach, but don't start switching coaches just because you aren't getting those results that you are hoping to see. Like you just need to, like, the process actually works. And that's what I would tell myself, because there's been plenty of times I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And so, so to trust the process, even though I was told that from the beginning, I would go back and say it works.
Cool. Thanks.
Taylor, thank you for joining us today on Women in Weightlifting, and we will see you at the National Championships. And I wish you all the best. And just again, congratulations for that performance at the Pan American Championships. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you for joining us.